Good evening. Welcome and thank you for being with us tonight, Thursday, September 29th, for the Calistoga City Mayor and City Council Candidate Forum. I am Millie Pease of the League of Women Voters of Napa County. Tonight, we are here to help educate Napa County voters by giving them the opportunity to hear from the candidates for these races. While we usually provide in-person forums due to the continuing COVID-19 concerns, we are coming to you via Zoom webinar. We are providing Spanish translation via the Zoom interpreter capability. If you wish to listen to the Spanish translation, click the globe-like icon, usually on the bottom right of your screen, and check Spanish. Our translator tonight is Dalila Hernandez. We are recording this forum and it will be posted on YouTube, our League of Women Voters website, Facebook, and our other social media platforms. Per FCC rules, no other recording of this forum or excerpts from the League recording are allowed. The League of Women Voters is a trusted organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. We are nonpartisan. We do not endorse or oppose candidates or political parties. The League does participate in issue advocacy and voter education. If you would like to join us in our work, please visit our website, lwvnapa.org, for membership information and much more. The League encourages civil discourse, and the candidates have all agreed to participate under guidelines set forth for this forum. The candidates have agreed to confine their remarks to their qualifications and issues, and not to resort to defamatory remarks about the other candidates. We expect all registrants to also be respectful of the candidates. Microphones and video are off for everyone except the candidates and the League Forum team. Please remember to mute yourself when you are not speaking. Our League team tonight is moderator Chris Bentz, timekeeper Linda Diedeker-Yolo, technical host Sherry Thomas. I will now turn the evening over to Chris.
Thank you, Millie, for the introduction. Good evening, everyone, and welcome candidates. Tonight, we have with us the candidates for the positions of mayor and city council members for Calistoga. This League of Women Voters Forum provides an opportunity for our community to learn from the candidates for these positions. We will do this by giving each candidate time for an opening statement, after which we'll have about an hour for as many questions as possible. Then we will finish with each candidate's closing statement. The questions were solicited in advance from the community and League of Women Voters members. Our team screened the questions to avoid duplication and to ensure nonpartisanship and civility. The candidates have not seen the questions in advance. The candidates for mayor are Gary Krause and Don Williams. The candidates for city council are Scott Cooper, Kevin Eisenberg, and Curtis Winslow. Candidates, please keep yourselves on mute when you are not answering a question. Mr. Williams, I don't know if you can tell, but your mute is not on. Thank you. Also, please ensure that you can view the timekeeper screen so you can keep to your allotted time. Our timekeeper, Linda, will start with a green screen. Then she will flash a yellow screen when you have only 30 seconds left. And finally, a red screen when your time is up. I retain the right to mute any candidate who continues to run over their allotted time or who violates their signed agreement with us to maintain civil discourse. We will start with the opening statements. The starting order was determined by random selection before the forum. I will rotate the starting order with each question. The closing statements will be in reverse order from the opening statements. And now we'll start with the opening statements. Mr. Cooper, we would like to start with you.
All right, sounds good. I went ahead and wrote it up to make sure I stayed within the time frame. All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Scott Cooper, and I've lived in Calistoga for over 30 years. I dearly love our small town, and I'm running for city council to help keep us on the right track. I believe our current leadership has done an excellent job in making correct decisions for Calistoga, and I intend to do everything I can to keep up the momentum. I've served on the Calistoga Planning Commission for over 9 years and am currently the chairman, so I believe I have the necessary experience and leadership skills to effectively contribute to our city council. Fiscal responsibility is of utmost importance during times of economic challenges like these. So one of my primary goals is to help preserve our city resources and reserves. Calistoga is an extremely fortunate beneficiary of sizable TOT income, which must be carefully sustained moving forward. Supporting our small businesses as well as law enforcement and first responders is also very important to me. Water challenges, wildfire issues, power outages, housing concerns, and preserving our small town character through properly managed growth and securing our fairgrounds are also all priorities. I look forward to working on all of these items. Should I be elected to our city council, I would be honored to earn your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Mr. Winslow. Go ahead and unmute.
Okay. Yeah, my name's Kurt Winslow. I've been in Calistoga since 2006. I moved here with my wife, who opened up Silage, and I'm a newbie. I haven't had all the experience that Mr. Eisenberg and Mr. Cooper and Mr. Williams and Mr. Krause have had, but I've got a few ideas that I want to try out and push Calistoga forward, because we're living in a time that has a lot of complications. I want to see Calistoga unite with other city councils in Napa, Sonoma, and Lake County, so that we can have coordinated efforts to promote city safety in terms of fire, water, and infrastructure here in the city. Plus, I would love to see the fairgrounds open up and flourish. I have a lot of ideas for the fairgrounds on how we can monetize and also diversify our main sources of income, which right now is based on TOT and the hospitality industry. So I want to see Calistoga grow in terms of being able to get beyond just hospitality industry and make it more of a social center and create a lot of different
Thank you.
opportunities. Thank you.
Your time's up.
Yeah.
Now we'll hear from Mr. Williams.
Good evening. My name is Donald Williams. I'm presently a member of the City Council of Calistoga, and I've resided in Calistoga for 48 years. Worked out of Calistoga, raised my family here. My work was diverse. I had both white collar and blue collar background in construction, in the blue collar world, and in management of my business, which was basically a white collar job. And also I taught mathematics for many years at Napa College. I'm a candidate for the mayor because I want to be of service and bring my experience to the service of the community. I want voters to have a choice, to have an alternative voice on the council. And it's important for me to try to connect the public and the community with the council by being responsive to their concerns. Sometimes when folks are unheard, it engenders a cynicism which can be corrosive to the body politic. And we want to try to not only avoid that, but to go in the opposite direction. On the council, I look forward to having interesting conversations with the community, with interesting people. That includes good listening as well. And I want to uphold community values.
Thank
Small
you.
town character.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Thank you.
Mr. Winslow and Mr. Williams, will you please mute yourselves? And now we are going to hear from Mr. Kraus.
Good evening. My name is Gary Kraus and I'm running for mayor. I came to Calistoga about 24 years ago to be the city's first full-time fire chief. As full-time fire chief, I laid the groundwork for bringing on additional paid people and further professionalizing what was already a great fire department, but it needed to accommodate an increasing number of calls. After 8 years, I ran for city council and was elected. That was 16 years ago, so I retired from being fire chief. During the time that I've been on the city council, there have been a lot of challenges. Many of you, of course, know about the wildfires that we've been evacuated. I believe it is 4 times because of, we've had a few jiggles, earthquakes, we've had a pandemic, we've had a recession, we almost went broke. We had like $16,000 left in our general fund budget, but we brought all that back, and we brought it back through good fiscal management. There are a few things I'd like to do as mayor. One of them is to resolve the fairgrounds issue, have fair and equitable water rates, make Calistoga more wildfire resistant, focus our resources and citizens on attainable ways to fight climate change, and act in a fiscally responsible way when it comes to our budgeting. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from Mr. Eisenberg.
Thank you. I'm Kevin Eisenberg, candidate for Calistoga City Council. I've lived in Calistoga for 30 years with my wife, Mary, and raised 2 children here. I've served as a teacher, the Calistoga Elementary School principal, and the Calistoga Junior Senior High School principal. As elementary principal, I was instrumental in bringing the Family Center to Calistoga to bring the vital county services up Valley. As Calistoga High School principal in my last 2 years, an unprecedented 60% of the graduates were accepted to 4-year universities. I get things done, I plan, I make it happen. I've been active in supporting community projects in Calistoga and beyond through Rotary, and was the district governor for Northwestern California. I continue to volunteer in the Calistoga community, and I'm a volunteer in all 3 Calistoga schools. I'm very involved in active transportation and have served on both the Calistoga and the Napa County Bicycle Advisory Committees. I'm committed to fiscal responsibility, acquiring the fairgrounds, fair and equitable water rates, supporting housing when feasible, providing needed services to our residents, maintaining a healthful environment, and planning for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will begin our questions, and candidates, you will have 1 minute to answer the questions. For the first question, we'll start with you, Mr. Cooper. And the question is, what are your main priorities? How will you advocate for them?
Well, my main priority really, again, is, the fiscal responsibility for the city. And obviously my wife let the cat back in. Shepherding our current income. I believe that tourism is incredibly important. Diversifying into other areas of income would be great to do, but if we can find, potential ways to do it, so be it. But I think we need to nourish the income that we have. The transient occupancy tax has done wonders to bring our community where it's at right now. So most important thing for me is fiscal responsibility and just making sure that we're moving forward as we have been with good momentum.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from Mr. Winslow on your priorities. Go ahead and unmute, Mr. Winslow. And Mr. Cooper,
Yeah.
can you mute, please?
Yeah, I know better. Anyway, my priorities, I believe right now are the fairgrounds. I would love to see us acquire the fairgrounds and also use that as a platform to diversify all the different occupations here in Calistoga. I see it as maybe making maker spaces, bringing older and younger generations together, sharing. Basically, in the high school, they're building little 400 square foot homes. Yeah, we can make eight square foot homes per year at the fairgrounds. Anyway, I think I'm out of time.
Thank you. Please be sure to mute. And now we'll hear from Mr. Williams.
Yes, my primary priorities are, first of all, enhancing democracy. That is, strengthening the relationship between our council and the public, which is basically the definition of democracy. And it means connecting the people with the council so that the council does what they want. Remembering that the people are in charge, and the main question is, will this serve the public and will provide what it wants? The second important theme for me is being true to our identity. Any person who's not true to his identity or her identity becomes false or untrue, and the same would be true for a town. And we're a small town and a semi-rural county, which can be interpreted to mean different things, but nevertheless, it's important to keep that in mind. So when any action or issues come up, it's important to think, is this consistent with our identity, or is it exploitative or disrespectful of it? Those are the two things that I focus on as we consider various issues.
Thank you. Thank you. Be sure to mute. Next, we'll hear from Mr. Kraus on priorities.
Yes, I guess jumped the gun a little bit in my opening. Fiscal responsibility, very important in this community. We need to support our business, which is tourism. That brings in about 2/3 of the revenue that we use to support the services that we provide. Wildfire resilience, we need to adopt fire codes that are, or additional fire codes that will enhance fire safety, and we need to improve our inspections of those aspects. Fairgrounds acquisition, we need to resolve that. There's going to be a city council meeting on it soon, but basically this will come to a vote of the people, and it will be determined that way. And finally, resolve, let's see, okay, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay, save it.
Okay.
You'll have other opportunities.
Please
be sure to mute, and now we'll hear from Mr. Eisenberg.
Thank you. One of the item that wasn't really mentioned, which I think is very important, is our water rates. It is expensive to bring water to people's homes. It's expensive to dispose of the sewage. What I would like is for us to make sure that we're making them fair and equitable, that they encourage conservation, and that people truly understand how water rates work. I feel there's a lot of misinformation, and that leads to one of my next priorities, is to try to bring the community together. I have one advantage over most candidates in that I'm bilingual in English and Spanish, and I think that we can have a community which is able to have joint conversations and resolve issues together. Thank you.
Thank you. For our next question, we'll start with Mr. Winslow. And the question is, What specifically would you propose to do to include more voices in the budget process and make the results more transparent?
Wow, what a great question. Thank you. Basically, outreach and digitally, print, and public meetings. I think that's the best way. I would, as a candidate, be totally as transparent as possible, obviously. I think that obviously we always want to be fiscally responsible, but we should have regular reports and should do a lot of outreach in terms of voter engagement, voter participation, citizen participation. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from Mr. Williams. Be sure to mute Mr. Winslow.
And could you repeat the question? I'm sorry, it was a little bit garbled on my end.
Sure. What specifically would you propose to do to include more voices in the budget process and to make the results more transparent?
In the what process was that?
The budget, the city
Oh,
budget.
in the subject?
Budget?
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Oh, the budget process. Oh,
Yes.
yes, thank you. So I've encouraged Calistogans to participate as much as possible, and I would continue to do that. I have a large email list of Calistogans, and I've encouraged folks to get on that list. And so, as well as encourage folks to subscribe to the local paper. But apart from the paper, which can only do so much, I've sent emails out to the public many times, and apparently they appreciate them because I have a long list of notes expressing satisfaction and appreciation for them. So reaching out in that has been helpful. And also letters to the editor I'll send every now and then for those who aren't using the email. And that also has been part of the process. But budgets aren't intrinsically very interesting on budget day. And so the folks who have shown up are those that I've invited in particular or mentioned to them. Please show up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Be sure to mute. Please mute yourself, Mr. Williams. Thank you. And Mr. Kraus, your turn.
Okay, there, I got the mute on. There's always been an issue of getting public participation in the budget process. As Don has observed, it's really pretty mundane, and sometimes people have to stick around a long time before they get to what it is they want to hear. Obviously, there is outreach that can be done, public noticing. People can participate via Zoom now. They can come in and participate. But despite all of our outreach efforts in the past, sometimes we're lucky if we have a half a dozen people in the audience that are interested in one aspect or another. So I think we keep doing what we're doing and working on the outreach and certainly using social media sources, I think is a good way to work on that.
Thank you. Now, your turn, Mr. Eisenberg.
Thank you.
And Mr. Kraus, excuse me, Mr. Kraus, will you mute yourself? Go ahead.
Okay, so I have the same feeling about the budget process as I do about all sorts of information that we want to get from our residents about what we're doing. And I think it has to be really multifaceted. And that is, some people are fine with email. Some people just want to come to meetings. But if we really want to know what people think, what people's priorities are, then we have to go out in the community. And that means going to the park, talking to people, setting up at farmers market. I participated in our ATAC, the Active Transportation Committee meeting, and gathering information about the what we need to keep Calistoga streets safe, and actively soliciting people from all walks of life. We did the survey in Spanish and English. I translated it I translated the answers in Spanish back, but multifaceted.
Thank you. Mr. Cooper, your turn.
Yes, well, I think really the most important thing to do is find various ways to engage the community, at least let them know the details that might be of interest. Communicating the substance that they would be interested in. I'm sure that many of the line items probably would be found fairly boring, but there's definitely going to be some of the subjects that our population is definitely going to want to at least understand, hear more about, and hopefully engage with. That's the important thing. If they can come to the meetings and add their input, that's the most important thing for me.
Thank you. The next question, we'll start with you, Mr. Williams. And the question is, how would you promote consensus process for discussing key issues facing the city of Calistoga and strategize opportunities and solutions to meet the city's needs?
I'm sorry, how would I promote consensus? And what is the rest of the question?
How would you promote consensus for discussing the key issues facing the city? And how would you strategize opportunities and solutions to meet the city's needs?
So bringing all aspects of an issue to the public, to the attention of the folks who are discussing it, will help to enlarge the discussion and will help to resolve differences that are that crop up. So as people are open-minded and listening carefully and respectful of each other, then the differences can diminish. And if the respect maintains, then even if consensus isn't achieved, at least a respectful disagreement can be maintained. So a careful listening and respectful dialogue, I think, would be important.
Thank you. Go ahead and mute, please. Mr. Williams, thank you. Mr. Kraus, we'll hear from you.
Okay, I think there's two aspects to consensus. One is public consensus, and in Calistoga, there's always a difference of opinion, so you're not going to get a complete agreement hardly on anything. So Mayor Canning, before COVID, used to do a mayor's forum, every 6 weeks or so, and invite one other council member to the forum, and we would discuss either a specific topic, which might be fixing up Grant Street, or it might be an open forum in which anybody could bring up any subject in an informal way. And I think that went a long way towards building community consensus. Then there's consensus on the city council, and that is important. And I think that there's some team building that needs to occur on any city council, and so that we all know what the priorities are of each council person, and we find ways to work with the strengths and weaknesses of each one of them.
Thank you. Go ahead and mute, please. And next we'll hear from Mr. Eisenberg.
Thank you. Well, I have had experience in consensus building. Try being a principal of a high school. You have to build consensus. But one of the ways to do it, one way you get anything accomplished, is that you bring people together to make a collective vision, and everybody has his or her voice heard in order to make it part of that vision. We all agree on some things. Every candidate, every person who's on the council, everyone in town, we can find some agreements. And it has to, what we have to do is work to build on those agreements and come to a collective vision. And I agree with whoever it was who talked about respect for each of us who is in a position to create that vision, listen, be part of the solution, and be open.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from Mr. Cooper.
Well, yes, I think the first step is for city council members to properly understand the issue, really dig in and learn about all the facets so that you can properly communicate these, the substance of the community. And again, it comes down to engaging and communicating, just getting all the details out on the table so that we can collectively come together. It's not just the city council members, it's the community that we represent. And so if we can have buy-in from the community members, if we can entice them to be part of the discussion and correctly explain the details, then I think we can go a long way to the success of our city.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from Mr. Winslow.
Yeah, I think part and parcel of building consensus is proper communication of what the actual issues are. So I think a lot of people misunderstand what's going on half the time because they don't because as some people like to say, you know, that, oh, how to say it? Well, basically, as a city council member, a politician, or a mayor, you're used to that environment, but you have to put yourself in other people's shoes, and that way you can start building consensus and respect their individuality and acknowledge them as citizens who you are serving. I think that's the way to begin.
Thank you. For our next question, we'll start with you, Mr. Kraus. The question is, fire safety is of utmost concern for the city of Calistoga. What are your ideas to better protect our community?
As I said in my opening statement, fire resiliency is vital to this community for a lot of reasons. Affordability of fire insurance, for instance, is a high priority for a lot of folks. Our fire code comes up for revision in the next year. And we have conducted a study to identify areas of the community that could benefit from more stringent building code regulations. And that's in the process as I understand it. Boy, that was quick.
I think you still have a little bit of time.
Oh, okay. All right. And the other thing is we need to be more aggressive in our fire inspections, particularly in that interface area, to make sure that we have compliance with the new codes. And then we need to be allied with Calistoga Fire Safe Council. And that covers not just the city, but also the county area. And if the county is safe, we're safe.
Thank you. Go ahead and mute, please. Thank you. And now we'll hear from Mr. Eisenberg.
Well, from a council point of view, I do agree with what Mr. Kraus said. I would also say a couple of days ago, I went to a Firewise presentation, and for me, it made me aware that information is incredibly important. Making our citizenry aware that there are things that they can do to make their homes, no matter where they live, safer places. We need the cooperation of our community to make secure spaces, safe spaces. And we also have to work very closely with the county because it is surrounding us. And with CAL FIRE, we have to be a partner. And it does give me great joy when I see CAL FIRE staked out at the fairgrounds during a fire emergency, and that they feel that that is a good place for them to work, and it makes me feel safer in Calistoga.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from Mr. Cooper.
Yes, I definitely echo Kevin and Gary's comments on the Firewise Fire Safe Council. I too attended that meeting, and educating our citizens on all the various ways to harden their homes against the fires are incredibly important. One of the most important things I learned was clean out your gutters. I didn't even know about that. And that's just one of the many important tasks that we can do in advance. In addition, I would feel very safe in our community to have a leader like Gary Kraus because of his background as a fire chief, and just having his leadership in that regard would go a long ways.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from you, Mr. Winslow.
Yeah, I think what Gary said is spot on. I would like to maybe expand that idea a little bit, especially in regards, I think we need to have more cooperation with all the cities in the valley as well as the other counties, so that we can coordinate fire efforts, because fire doesn't really obey any county lines. And also have something like maybe there's some solutions where get the fire department some drones where they could launch on a regular basis, detect fires. These have technology that shares among different officials and that kind of stuff. And fire, and also the gutter, not only the gutters, but also having sprinkler systems for that you can hook up to protect your roof from embers, that kind of stuff.
Thank you. And now Mr. Williams.
I was supportive of the council, along with Councilmember Kraus, as he mentioned, of strengthening the building codes. I think that's important, and that's coming along pretty soon. And our council also agreed to install sirens, emergency sirens, and we purchased the hardware for a radio station for Calistoga. So those are steps that we have taken, and being conscious of the urban wildlife or wildlife area interface is important too, so we minimize building there. I've also circulated the Firewise Council information as they've asked me to do many times. And I have a note also to check with our present fire chief about our plan for emergency evacuation and ask him to confirm that it's as good a plan as it can be. I'm sure he has something, and I want to make sure that at least have the council look at that and make sure that it's a plan that's going to meet
Thank
just
you.
about any emergency. Thank you.
Go ahead and mute yourself. And now, for the next question, we'll start with you, Mr. Eisenberg. And the question is, how will you work on recruiting highly qualified staff? Should the city research incentives for hiring or retaining employees more representative of the community?
This is a big problem. It's a big problem with city employees. It's a big problem with our merchants in town. It is difficult to get people to come to Calistoga, and the main reason is the incredibly high cost of housing. What I am in favor of is workforce housing, finding a way to do subsidized housing that is addressed to the people who live and work in Calistoga. There are some great examples. Where I live is a great example. It happened 30 years ago, but the people who lived and worked in Calistoga, it was mixed with market value and then subsidized, and the market value houses paid for the subsidized. We don't have the same large pieces of land, but it can be done on a smaller scale. If we don't solve the housing problem, we will not be able to get the workers we need. And we're paying well, but there's no place to live. I believe in the red lights. I stop.
Yes, thank you very much. Mr. Cooper, would you address this?
Again, the most important, the most challenging issue again is housing, and it's housing not only just for city staff, it's housing for our employers. I think we've come a long ways in the two new apartment buildings that are going up. That's going to provide rental housing, obviously, encourage folks to stay here in town. But we also have to find ways to develop single-family homes that are reasonably cost, that our teachers and our law enforcement and our first responders, our public works employees, and not to mention our city staff, can afford. It's just ridiculously expensive right now with rates going up. Hopefully values will come down, but housing is the ultimate reason for these problems.
Thank you. Mr. Winslow.
I have to echo the statements right there. Housing is the biggest problem. right now, many businesses can't sustain their employees, and city is having the same problem trying to attract qualified people to be working for the city because of the housing problem. I also think that maybe we should start looking at people that that basically rent out a house that they own here or own several houses under an Airbnb kind of thing. And maybe we need to make some restrictions as far as that goes as well.
Thank you. Go ahead and mute yourself, please, Mr. Winslow.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Williams.
Yes, if we solve the housing problem, we'll be an exemplar for the entire state of California, because it's bigger than Calistoga. I think we're going to solve it if we. It's a huge issue. There's more demand than there is supply, and either the demand has to decline or the supply has to increase. If the supply increases, we're jeopardizing that small town quality. So there's a tension there. And nonetheless, it is increasing. I just counted up how many housing units are either underway or proposed right now. And it's something like, let's see, 238 are proposed, and another, altogether, there's 449 in the pipeline units, either single family residences or houses. So we can build and build and still not satisfy the demand. I am thinking about housing dedicated to employees of the city. I haven't proposed anything, but I am thinking to explore that concept.
Thank you. Time's up. Go ahead and mute, please. And now we'll hear from Mr. Kraus.
Yes, staffing is the crisis, is at a crisis level for the city of Calistoga. We have about 55 full-time employees, and I think about 20% of those positions are vacant. We pay pretty well. We really do. We take great efforts to compare the fringe benefits and salaries that we offer to other jurisdictions. But as everybody else has observed, we get a person that's interested in coming here, and then they look to find where they're going to be able to live, and then they have to turn the job down. So in complete agreement, we need to develop that housing, if not in the city, immediately around it, someplace within a reasonable commute, preferably within the city. And that's the answer ultimately. I think that's pretty well answered the question.
Thank you. For the next question, we'll start with you, Mr. Cooper. And the question is, what is your opinion about the adequacy and sustainability of our water supply? How will you plan so that we balance adding new users to the system without adversely impacting the current users? How would you ensure equitable rates?
That again is multi-faceted question, and obviously one of the most important critical issues facing our town right now. We're at a crossroads. The developments are going right now. They already have approved water allocations. Looking forward, we don't know how long this drought's going to last. We don't know how long our water supply is actually going to survive. We need to develop as many more resources that we possibly can. If we need to increase the size of Kimball Dam, so be it. In terms of finding methods to make the water prices more equitable, there's a lot of infrastructure maintenance issues confronting us in the future. We have to be aware of that. We just have to work together as a community to come up with different solutions that will solve these problems the best we can do.
Thank you. Mr. Winslow.
Yeah, this is a problem close to my heart because I pay 3 water rates because I rent out 2 units. So I think basically looking at the whole distribution plan between and separate residents from businesses and see how that can be balanced. The problem is that we don't know. There's a lot of unknowns in terms of how long the drought is going to last. But from what I've heard and seen, Calistoga has been great at conserving water compared to other towns in the valley. So we just keep up the public education, and people have been participating in Calistoga, and we actually have been given water to St. Helena.
Thank you. Go ahead and mute, please. And we'll hear from Mr. Williams next.
So I understand why the water rates are what they are. As I'm talking to people during this campaign, that's the issue that comes up most of all. And I will say that the natives are restless about the water rates. And we finally had the report from the Public Works in a recent meeting that at this rate, our water supply will actually be insufficient even for the residents in town, let alone the anticipated residents. So I don't think the state of California is doing us any favor by mandating more housing when the water is not there for us. It doesn't make sense. I don't know how that's going to be resolved, but that's going to be an issue, and that's a great question. As for the rates, the consultants will advise us, and one of the main criteria for the rates will be that they are equitable across the board.
Thank you. Please, now we'll hear from Mr. Kraus.
Yes, based on the report that Councilman Williams just referenced, and based upon the current amount of structures that are under construction, as well as the current use rate, we have enough water to get through about a year and a half. However, we don't know what future weather is going to be like. We have some plans to interconnect to Lake Berryessa with other agencies, and there's a possibility that we can get a grant to reactivate some wells that are up in Phage Canyon that will give us about 120 acre feet per year. Currently, we use about 740 acre feet a year. And as was also observed, our conservation efforts are going very well. And at some point, we're going to have to expand our use of recycled water. That's the big answer.
Thank you. Mr. Eisenberg. Mr. Kraus, will you mute yourself, please? Yeah, thanks. Mr. Eisenberg?
Yes. Difficult problem. We have to handle it on several levels. One, increased supply, Kimball Dam, the wells that Councilman Kraus was referring to. But there's also some issues in infrastructure, and we have to make some infrastructure improvements. Right now, it's estimated that 6 to 10% of our water is lost before it even gets to people's homes. So paying up front for infrastructure can increase the water supply. Also conservation. It's said that 70% of residential water use is for landscaping. I support what the city did with paying people to take out their lawns and put in water, plantings or non-agriculture landscaping so that we would save water. I'd like to see other incentives for people to reduce the amount of landscaping water.
Thank you. For our next question, we'll start with you, Mr. Winslow, and this is the fairgrounds question. Of course, the city is working with the county to purchase the fairgrounds. What are your ideas to best utilize this property?
Oh, well, I was thinking basically on the fairgrounds, there's a thing called a makerspace where people can, either through grants or for private donations, donate tools like modern tools like water cutters, laser cutters, different manufacturing which have low pollution indices and can create different types of things. As I said before, the high school right now creates a little 400 square foot house. They do once a year in their building and trades curriculum. Well, I mean, basically, we could have the high schoolers make extra money and build like 8 of those, and we have some donated land. Oh, that goes towards solving part of the housing problem. But things like that. And also, if you do something like that, it gives you an opportunity to build community between our older residents and our younger residents, because a lot of our older residents are very skilled. A lot of them are skilled tradesmen, and
Thank
could
you.
spend a lot of pass on a lot of knowledge.
Thank you. Go ahead and mute, please. And Mr. Williams.
Regarding the fairgrounds, there are a number of constituencies that are looking forward to resuming their activities at the fairgrounds. That is the racetrack folks, the speedway, and the golfers, and the RV park folks. So those folks would like to get back in there, and I'm sympathetic with them. And my thinking presently is to resume the activities that were formerly used at the fairgrounds. However, I'll be guided by the public on this one. If the public wants to go another direction, then I will agree with that. The Friends of the Fairgrounds, or the previous Fairground Association, had a good study commissioned 4 or 5 years ago, and there were various ideas there, and they enlarged or expanded on what was there at the fairgrounds. That's a good starting point for alternative uses at the fairgrounds, but the public will guide us in this, and I will be aligned with their interests.
Thank you. Go ahead and mute, please. And Mr. Kraus.
Yes, I concur with Don that it will be a community decision on what activities occur over there, provided we acquire the property. I think that I'd be also interested, besides what's occurring there right now, that we do some more municipal style park-like things, playground equipment, dog park, community gardens. All those things are lacking in that area of town. One thing I am not looking forward to or in favor of doing at all is expanding housing opportunities into the fairgrounds. The more intense population becomes in the community, the more important it is to have open space to recreate. And that's the way I view the fairgrounds. It's a park, and we're going to continue using community fundraising events there. It's needed for fire evacuations and base camps. So fires.
Thank you. Mr. Eisenberg.
Thank you. I absolutely want the fairgrounds. I think it's a travesty what the county has allowed to happen at the fairgrounds, but it will cost money. And this is where I agree with both mayoral candidates. We need to find out what people want, because they're in the end going to decide whether or not to vote to make it happen. And so this is absolutely critical that we do outreach, that we get a consensus from the community. Otherwise, it's just going to sit and look just the where it is, like it does now. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Cooper.
Yes, the fairgrounds is really the heart of Calistoga. I have so many great memories of the races and the RV park. The most important thing we can possibly do is turn on the revenue streams, bring them back alive. Renovating the fairgrounds is going to be a challenge, but I think engaging the community, asking them to brainstorm and come up with ideas, like potentially working with resorts to potentially invest in the golf course. Just finding other ideas from our community members. I know that the Friends of the Fairgrounds are working on a lot of things. So we just have to brainstorm, be creative, because whatever it takes, I think we need to wrap this up. We need to find a way to make this ours again.
Thank you. The next question, we'll start with you, Mr. Williams, and this is a housing question. How do you plan to encourage and finance the building of affordable and mid-price housing?
How do I I'm sorry. Would you repeat again, Christina?
Yes. How do you plan to encourage and finance the building of affordable and mid-price housing?
Affordable, what kind of housing?
Affordable and also mid-price housing.
Oh, how do I plan to encourage it? Is the question. I will let the market decide how the housing will go. Is my personal sense. If a developer or a builder or a landowner wishes to build or develop, and he or she satisfies the code and the zoning requirements are satisfied, then I will step back and let that builder proceed. I'm not in favor of modifying or changing the zoning or the building codes unless it's mandated by the state, because folks have moved to Calistoga for the purpose of partly because it's a small town and they're relying on those codes and zoning to maintain the quality of the town. But if the market allows building to proceed and there's no breach of zoning or building codes, then I'll be happy for that to happen.
Thank you. Please mute yourself. And Mr. Kraus, we'll hear from you next.
Yes, we've already discussed the needs. There's a couple things the city can do and has already started doing. Number one is land banking, that when a piece of property comes available, we have housing funds available from impact fees and from TOT measure that we can use to purchase property and land bank it for future use. That's one thing. The next thing is we can give discounts for the kind of housing that we want on their building fees and their impact fees. And just like the city did, I think it's probably close to 30 years ago, we did something that was called equity housing, where we allowed a contractor to do a subdivision and sell a certain number of properties for market rate and then discount it to first-time home buyers. And we can put some parameters on that to make sure that the jobs stay, that the homes stay in local folks and for jobs.
Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead and mute, please, Mr. Kraus. And Mr. Eisenberg.
That program that Mr. Kraus was referring to, that's where I live. And it was, I was saying before, it's split between market value homes, this was 30 years ago, and subsidized homes, and it's turned into a wonderful community. And we need to look for other opportunities like that. And it does take city intervention, because the city has to work with the builder to make these agreements where they get to make some money off the market value and subsidize the more affordable. And remember, this is for our workers, our policemen, our firemen, our merchants, our city workers. This is so essential to have affordable for middle-class people to live and work in Calistoga. And we need to look at sweat equity too. We have a sweat equity project that worked out very well, where people participated in the construction and that gave them a discount on the house. It's going to take some, oops, it went red. Done.
Mr. Cooper.
Yes, I'd like to see potentially any of these 400 odd homes convincing the developers or forcing the developers to dedicate a certain percentage of those specifically for employees of the city and employees of our education system. Additionally, it would be good if we could potentially subsidize some of the purchasing costs and even come up with a down payment assistance program that our general fund would also subsidize as well. So it's very, very important. I think it's one of the most critical issues that we're all facing here. And again, we all need to work together to come up with some out of the box ideas.
Thank you. And Mr. Winslow.
Yeah, land banking is one of the best ideas. When I moved here, basically my wife was hired by Solage, who donated land, and they built a complex of affordable housing for people in Calistoga and, you know, Solage workers and so forth. But I haven't seen that happen with the Four Seasons project or with the Diamond Mountain project. So I want to, having resorts that come in, propose something like that as well. Otherwise, I agree with everything everybody else has said. All very good ideas.
Thank you. Go ahead and mute, please. And our next question will start with you, Mr. Kraus. And the question is, in the past year, our cities and county have declared a climate emergency and committed to achieving net zero climate pollutants by 2030. If elected, what actions would you champion to drive emergency level mitigation measures?
Thank you. Number one, we're going to continue supporting the Calistoga Green Committee, the first one created in Napa Valley. We'll be very vigorous in expanding their scope of practice. I'd like to see some things come about with foodware, disposable foodware. I think that we can encourage more green energy by reducing or eliminating building permit fees for solar panels and batteries. I think there are some other things that we haven't considered just yet. We have banned new gasoline stations in town, leaf blowers. We were the first city to adopt the climate emergency ordinance or declaration. So there's been a lot of things that that we have accomplished. I'm especially proud of the fact that we had the first climate action plan in Napa Valley. The county of Napa does 10.6 tons per person. Calistoga does 6.5. I think that's
That's great. Thank you very much for that answer.
all in a minute.
Mr. Eisenberg.
Thank you. So one of the things I liked about the conversion from gas blowers to electric blowers is there was a subsidy that was provided by the city to help gardeners, people working in the industry, so that it wasn't such a huge expense. The other thing that I would like to go further with those kinds of mitigations, but also I'm a strong supporter of active transportation. We live in such a great place. Let's make bicycling easier. Let's fix the roads so you can ride your bike without feeling like you're in some sort of roller coaster filled with rocks on the tracks falling off. It's just terrible that we don't have such good roads. But let's make it a good place to walk and bike. We're not going to eliminate cars, but let's try to make it the thing to do. Use cars less.
Thank you. Mr. Cooper.
Yes, I think, you know, one of the most important things we can do is continue to support the Green Committee. They've come up with some fantastic ideas and they continue to do so. Another important, I think, element would be increasing the charging stations in town and obviously encouraging walking and bicycling and minimizing the use of vehicles as much as possible. I love to see these electric blowers replacing gas blowers. That's just another example of the great work that we've done. Just being committed and communicating how important it is moving forward to everybody in Calistoga is one of the most important things we can do.
Thank you. Mr. Winslow.
Yeah, I think Calistoga's been doing some great jobs, especially with the conversion from gas leaf blowers into electric leaf blowers, offering those incentives. I take my bike to CalMart pretty much every day. And I have to agree with Kevin, is like, we need to improve the roads because it's like riding a cyclone on Coney Island when you're when you're riding your bike. And maybe we want to increase the electric charge stations and promote EVs within Calistoga.
Thank you. Go ahead and mute, please. And Mr. Williams.
Yes, I've been pretty active encouraging the Green Committee. I encouraged the members who are there to join, and I was pleased that they did. And I was very pleased that the Green Committee, in particular, John Gleaser, took my suggestions to work to the public regarding the leaf blower ban, and he worked it very well and was brought it to the council last, and we were able to pass that. And I was glad to have encouraged him from the beginning on that. Also, I was glad that the council requested the Napa County limit the tree cutting in the oak woodlands. It was a resolution and it hadn't any force of law, but our council was supportive of that, which I appreciated. And so paying attention to what the Green Committee offers in terms of ideas, they will bite off what they can. You can't do everything right at the beginning, but they've taken some great steps, and respecting their ideas and paying attention to them and encouraging them, I think will be important going forward. Also, paying attention to...
Your time's up. Thank you. And now we are going to hear from Mr. Eisenberg for our last question. And this question is, what do you see the role of the police department in terms of creating trust with at-risk communities?
First, I think we are so fortunate to have a police chief like we do right now, who part of his whole reason for being a police chief is creating trust. And he's out and about, and that's what I want to see. If it ever comes that he actually does retire, that we find somebody equally as in favor of creating trust. I like to see our police walking neighborhoods. I'd like to see a return to the bicycle patrol. But the most important thing is what the goals are that is set from the council, that's transmitted to the chief and to the police department. And that is, we want public safety, but public safety comes about best when there is trust, and that it should be built. And I think they've done a good job.
Thank you. Mr. Cooper.
Yes, I think the most important way to achieve these goals is diversity within our police department. I think they've done an excellent job with that. Secondly is engaging with the youth. If we can gain the trust of the youth in our town, then moving forward into the future as they mature, that's going to do a lot. Again, just being part of the community, communicating their efforts, and just being out there, walking the streets like Kevin said, and being a presence of comfort and of not aggression, I think are all some of the most important. But again, it comes down to diversity. And again, language, communication, for me, is what's most important.
Thank you. Mr. Winslow.
I think the police have been doing a great job. Nice, diverse force. Chief Mitch is a upstanding example of what a police chief should be. I think that they should do a little more outreach. And I also, when I moved here, there was more foot patrols and bicycle patrols, which I would like to see reinstated. But I think they have done a great job in serving our community.
Thank you. Go ahead and mute, please. And Mr. Williams.
Yes, I agree with the previous comments. And there was a survey that the city offered to the community a couple of years ago. And I think the most popular department, the most well-respected among the respondents to the survey was the police department. And I think that was those accolades were justified because I think they do a great job. They're humane, they're sensitive, and I think they're efficient as well and proficient. So I think they're doing a good job already, and I think the chief has had a good example that way. I compliment him, and I thank you for the question.
Thank you. Mr. Kraus. Mr. Williams, will you mute yourself, please?
You know,
Mr.
we have really a well-policed community. We don't have the issues that many communities have with crime and police response to that crime. We have a great community resource officer, police school resource officer, Samantha. Boy, she really likes doing that job, and it shows. And we have we used to do street patrols. We've had problems keeping officers. That's kind of behind us now. We have a cadre. We're full on the number of officers we have, but it starts out with the attitude of the chief, and the chief tells the officers how he thinks the community should be policed. And I'm very pleased with the way things have worked. They're great. They like working here, and we love having them.
Thank you. So now we're going to move to the closing statements in the opposite order from the opening statements, and we'll start with you, Mr. Eisenberg. 1 minute, please.
Thank you. With 30 years in Calistoga, I have the public sector work experience, administrative and budget experience, the ability to work with and build consensus across all parts of our community to achieve real success on the City Council. I'm committed to acquiring the fairgrounds, finding fair and equitable water rates, supporting housing when feasible, providing the needed services to our residents, maintaining a healthful environment, and planning for the future. And I will work with my colleagues and city staff to hear all points of view and make decisions always with the best interests of the people of Calistoga. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kraus.
Thank you. Been a great evening. In summation, I think the city is going to face a lot of challenges in the future. We have an aging population. We need to start planning now on what kind of services we're going to provide off in the future. That's some master planning that needs to be done. In the meantime, we're going to have a number of crises that are going to occur. We've certainly vulnerable to earthquakes, fires, and other forms of calamity. And what I would ask is, who would you prefer to have leading the community in the event of an emergency? Who better than a retired fire chief? So I'm asking for your vote November 8th. And that's because experience matters. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Williams.
I'd like to offer some of the ideas that are important to me, the ideas I keep in mind as issues are presented. First of all, it's the value of participation in the community. And with that in mind, I want to thank everybody here on this panel, everybody who's participating and offering their services to the public. I do appreciate that. The idea, first of all, that governs my decision-making is that the people are in charge. And secondly, that all the dimensions of a community are important. That is the financial, the spiritual, the agricultural, and the social. Calistoga should respect the residents' hopes and dreams as well as facts that are presented. And I think of Calistoga as a community and not just a place to visit. Care for our environment is crucial. And unexpected and different ideas, I think, are important to consider. And finally, we can move forward.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from Mr. Winslow.
Yeah, as I said, I'm a newbie at this. So but if elected as a city councilman, I will respect everyone who comes forward. I will listen, and then because of my background in technology, marketing, and different aspects of social communication, I will try to make decisions and policies of the city council as clear as possible and be as transparent as possible to the general public, which I serve. So please consider me.
Thank you. Mr. Cooper.
You know, each time I walk by that I Love Calistoga mural on Lincoln Avenue, I smile because my heart truly does belong to Calistoga. And I think the most important thing for a city council member to do is represent the community. There's a lot of tough decisions that need to be made, but if we engage with the citizens of Calistoga correctly, we get their input, we listen to them, and we make decisions that continue our success. That's how we move forward in the future together as a community. Thank you. I would love to earn your vote.
Thank you. Candidates, on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Napa County, I thank you for your time to participate in this forum and for your willingness to serve the Napa community by running for office. Now I return the forum back to our host, Millie.
We especially thank the audience for joining us this session to meet the candidates and for posing your thoughtful questions. For further information or to submit questions for our upcoming forums, to learn about all the candidates and ballot measures, links to our Voter's Edge Guide, and other election information, please visit the League's easy-to-use website, lwvnapa.org. If you would like to be involved with the League, this is for men and women, helping make democracy work for everyone. It's easy to join. Just visit our website. A reminder that the deadline to register to vote and still get a ballot in the mail is October 24th. You can register and vote in person up until 8 p.m. on November 8 at a vote center or the election office. If you have moved or changed your name or wish to change your party affiliation since you last registered, you need to re-register. Also, please remember to sign the back of your ballot and ensure that your signature matches the one with which you are registered. To check on your registration or to track your ballot, see votersedge.org. If you vote by mail in Napa County, you can avoid any postal delivery delays by using one of the many drop boxes in Napa, and you do not need postage. All drop boxes and the elections office vote center will be available starting Monday, October 10th at 8 a.m. For the Dropbox locations and information on the other vote centers and opening dates, see our Napa County elections site. It's in the chat. The election department would like us to announce they need more vote center workers. The pay is good for a few weeks of work. For details, see the County of Napa elections webpage. Finally, please encourage your family, your friends, and your neighbors to vote in this election. As we all know, every vote counts. Thank you and good evening. And I believe Sherry is going to show our last slide. And thank you all. And candidates, you made it hard to choose.
I think the recording needs to be turned off as well.
Ah, okay.
but I don't know that Sherry's with us anymore. Candidates,
Maybe-
you are welcome to
Some-
leave the
Thank
floor.
you. Thank you, everyone.
Somehow,
Yeah, thank you so much for this.
Thank you all.
Very good for me. I actually learned a lot. So,
it
Thank
was,
you. Good job, everybody.
yeah,
Great.
thank you.